afternoon, viewers. Thank you very much. Welcome to Punchline Africa Television, broadcasting from the Political Command Center right in Mombasa, wherever I am in the world. Thank you very much across to you, Miriam, in the headquarters. We have been having troubles of power surge up and down, and therefore we have connected back to our power systems. Thank you very much. Good afternoon in Nairobi, Kenya.
Very good afternoon to you, Doctor, and good afternoon to our viewers. Good morning, good evening, depending on where they're watching us from today.
Okay, thank you very much. I haven't had you at all on that one, but I don't know. Is something always wrong? Thank you very much. Do you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Now I can hear you.
Okay.
All right. I can hear you now. Some magic has come here. Thank you very much, viewers across the continent of Africa. This is Africa Showdown, broadcasting all the way from the Political Command Centers, I've said, across in America, in London. Thank you very much. Those in Europe, in Ukraine, thank you very much for watching us. This is Punchline Africa Television, the only television online for the last 7 years. We have been struggling to make sure that we do something for Africa, and I think we have achieved it. Good afternoon, all of you. Those in the morning session, afternoon session, night session in Australia, those who are waking up in the United States of America, thank you very much for your patronage. Today we have a show, Africa Showdown. In this show, we shall be looking at Kenya first, the Kenya politics. What is it? What is going on in the papers? Miriam will bring us up to date. We shall also be looking at Africa at large. Then today's topic is Mr. Soros funding regime change in Africa. How many countries are now in turmoil? We shall look at that, and those that are expected to be in turmoil. In our second phase, Miriam will take you through some of the countries that we see that we have been talking about, and we are proving a point that George Soros is here. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Daniel Sean Wesonga in the CBD of Nairobi. Good afternoon.
Yes, sir. Very good afternoon to you, Dr. Matsanga David in Mombasa. Good afternoon to my colleague Miriam Oguta at our headquarters in Nairobi. Good afternoon to our viewers here in Nairobi, Kenya, East Africa, and the rest of the continent.
Thank you very much. Miriam, back to you. Let's go through the headlines quickly. Ruto is in London. He has arrived in London to make more propaganda, and now he has included the story of going to Israel. What do you think is his main aim? You tell us. Those out there who want to join this conversation, you can always join this conversation by entering Zoom number 399 535 8320. That it will bring you up to our theater of operation. Then we shall give you the code number. It is 503 670. You join the Zoom and talk to us. Let's discuss Africa, Kenya, Africa, East Africa. What's going on? Museveni yesterday met Mr. Kalonzo and Mr. Gideon Moy. Are things about to be very good? Are they coming to a good sense of operations? Have they agreed? Did they go to seek permission? Because they are friends, great friends, especially the Moy family is a great family friend of President Museveni. What are they coming to bring to us? We shall look at that today. But first, Miriam, bring us the news.
Very well, thank you so much. And indeed, Kenyans are surprised because when, Deputy President left the country for his, 10 or 12-day tour, the countries that were mentioned initially were the US, the UK, and Qatar. And I think yesterday we learned now he will be extending to Israel. Very well. So the Sunday Standard this afternoon, the main headline, Uhuru duped me on Raila. Kenyans may never know the truth behind Uhuru's fallout with his deputy. But in his tour of the US, the deputy president has opened up on doubts and clouded the handshake deal and an alleged betrayal on the Kenyatta second succession. He saw coming. The story is on page 8. Artist behind plastic sculpture at UN in Nairobi. I think that is a special coverage on page 4. And Kalonzo's 3 options in race for State House, that is on page 6 and 7, and how 349 people aided Kenya's economic mess, that is on page 32 and 33. And then we turn our attention to the Sunday Nation. Uhuru's power plan after elections. Political insiders, including coaches Francis Atwoli, have openly said the president is too young to retire. DP Ruto alleges a plot to keep him in power after August. The story is on page 19 and 20. Raila promised to retire in handshake deal, Ruto now claims. And all right, DP William Ruto has sensationally claimed that ODM leader Raila Odinga had agreed to retire from politics as part of the handshake deal with President Kenyatta. In 2018, Ruto, who is on a tour of the United States, in an interview said Mr. Odinga had asked the president for a retirement package, claiming that he would exit the political scene and withdraw from the 2022 succession politics. That is on page 5. And Kenya students' lucky escape from he was not privy or party to whatever talks that President Uhuru Kenyatta had with opposition leader Raila Odinga.
Thank you very much, Miriam. Anybody taking Deputy President Ruto as a serious man must be either mentally or himself mentally derailed, or he is about to go to one of your hospitals in Kenya called Mathare Hospital. Because this is a guy who doesn't know what he's saying today, what he's going to eat, or what he ate yesterday. He comes up and says, oh, this is that is that, oh, Ruto told me this, oh, Uhuru told me this, oh, he told me this. This guy, I like what the 2 leaders yesterday told President Museveni yesterday. It is very good, so that President Museveni can hear from independent people. Some of us, when we talk about Ruto, people think that we are just malicious about Deputy President William Ruto. But sincerely speaking, Ruto is a very dangerous guy. I don't think you can do business with Mr. Ruto anywhere and you succeed. Either he takes you down 6 feet or you can get injuries. It is a serious matter. This man has got a deficit of a liar, a lie deficit. It is plenty of it. He's a liar. Is what we call is a certified liar. You know, when you do accounts and you certify accounts as being good or bad, but also with errors, that is what Ruto is. These topics are coming now. He never told us this. He never told us this. He came up and said, I oppose BBI. In BBI, he said, Uhuru never told me about the BBI. Uhuru says, I told you about the BBI. And you agreed, you even brought your names. Then he turned around and said, oh, I brought the names because I thought we are doing something which was a government project. Now, come on. Maybe, Miriam, it is only us who might waste our time on this, but most people have given up on Ruto a long time ago. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Perhaps your thoughts, Daniel Wasonga, now DP coming up and making these revelations that the handshake, when Raila met with President Uhuru Kenyatta, they had agreed that Raila would retire, and so he was asking for his retirement package and promised that he will not run for 2022, general elections. But from what we know and what the deputy has been saying, which I think has been quite inconsistent, even for the people who are following what he's been saying, is that he wasn't privy, to those talks. He was not involved. He does not know. So what moral ground can he stand on to now come and tell us, you know what, a part of those talks, this is what they talked about, while he's been saying, I was not even involved in those talks?
Miriam, that one actually vindicates the president. You remember while in Bomas, the president said that before he went to meet the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, the Harambe office in town, he actually called his deputy, and the deputy was privy to the kind of talk that was undergoing behind the scenes, and he was very, very much aware that the president was actually going to bring Raila Odinga on board through the handshake. And he said that Raila Odinga was not even demanding to be part of government, but he just wanted to be there so that he could actually give advice in one or two projects that were being undertaken by the government, and also just to make sure that perhaps whatever good work that the president was doing could actually continue without being interfered with by the political tensions that were actually rocking the country. So actually this now comes to vindicate the president, whatever the president said that Boma some time back, and even during the Sagana 3 meeting, that he told his deputy the plans that they had in the handshake. And now William Ruto coming on board and giving actually the intricate details of the handshake that Raila Odinga was supposed to retire from politics as one of the key maybe agreements that they had during the handshake. Then that tells you that this is not an outsider in the handshake pact. This is someone who knew everything to detail, and therefore he's very hypocritical whenever he claims that the handshake was the greatest or the baddest thing that ever happened to Kenya, and also that it has derailed the Jubilee agenda. If he knew that the handshake is going to derail the agenda of the Jubilee government, then why wouldn't he have maybe disagreed with his boss in an amicable way? And if he never knew that the handshake, that the handshake was going to happen, or maybe the handshake happened maybe under his nose, how did he come to know that Raila Odinga had promised to retire from politics? So this kind of hypocrisy is what we are talking about, Miriam. The deputy president is talking from the both sides of his mouth. Just recently, he complained in America that Azimio la Umoja and the state were planning to rig the forthcoming elections against him. Whereas here in Kenya, he is saying that no one can ever steal his elections. He has dismissed severally that there is a presence of a deep state which can actually be able to aid his competitors to rig an election against him. So, like Dr. Matsanga says, anyone who believes William Ruto should actually be Basak, could be Basak upstairs. And this because this is a man who does not even believe in whatever he talks about. And whatever he believes in, he does not even talk about. Just the other day, I was also perturbed when he said that he is going to protect maybe the LGBTQ community here in Kenya. Whereas while here in Kenya, he told us very clearly that this is a Christian nation, and such people should not be allowed into this country. So, but because he's in the US and he knows there is where easy money comes from whenever you talk about LGBTQ, and whenever you seem to be open-minded, he actually accepted that he's going to protect those people when he takes leadership. Miriam, that tells you the kind of desperation. It tells you the kind of extent William Ruto can go to lie to the world so that he gets favors and people to support him in whatever agenda he has. So to me, Miriam, I don't believe William Ruto is someone who can be trusted, and whatever he talks about, I don't think even himself sometimes believes that it is actually true. If you really want to maybe get much deeper detail into this, just go back to the previous clips of William Ruto even giving out promises to the people of Kenya. And you really wonder if this is the same man who is claiming that he's going to fix the economy of this country. What has he been doing for the past 9 years? Why hasn't he approached his boss and given him those ideas that he wants to do when he's elected as president in August? He can do it now. Why is he taking it all the way up to August 2022? I believe, Miriam, that this is a man who is only driven by his personal ambition, but not ambition of the people of the Republic of Kenya. Therefore, he is the least expected person that I could ever trust with anything, Miriam. I submit.
Mm-hmm. All right. And before we just move on to the other matter, when he was speaking, just part of what he said, we did not discuss, for example, that it will be an exercise to kill the opposition and oversight when he's claiming when he and President Kenyatta were discussing about the handshake. He's saying they did not discuss that part of it will be to kill the opposition and oversight. So if that is a problem, and I think that is something he's kept raising, how the opposition now is in government and government is in opposition, but also he's part of that government, and we've seen some opposition members of parliament and politicians allied, say, to ODM, like Aisha Jumwa, cross over and join his camp. So if you have a problem with that thing, but you're doing the same thing, I mean, if you're going to choose a narrative, you have to commit to it and live by it. Doc. Songa.
Thank you very much, Miriam.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I am glad you have brought in this issue of this guy being double standards. In the United States, he says he doesn't support certain section of people in Kenya now because he's in the US. But in Kenya, he says he hates them. Now, these are some of the glaring facts that we are going to lay on the table when he has finished his Chatham House speech. And we tell the world, the people, especially the British people, are interested. They are very clear people. They're clear-minded. They say this is a man of double standard. This is a corrupt man who should not be talking to a non-corrupt society. So these are some of the things that we people, those who want to make sure that they get a clean beer, a very good Kenya, should bring out. I am shocked that the man went there and said that things. I like them. When we take power, we shall protect them. But Miriam, this was only to get money. He wanted to pick their money. I don't know. I missed one of the pieces of your questions. What was that?
He's saying that while him and President Kenyatta were discussing the issues to do with handshake, remember he's been saying he was not privy, he did not know, he was not involved. But now he's saying they actually discussed. So, of course, what Daniel says, they're vindicating what President Uhuru Kenyatta has been saying all along, that he talked to his deputy president, and he's saying that part of what they discussed they did not discuss, for example, what it will be, that it will be an exercise to kill the opposition and oversight. Okay, fine. That is something that he's been having a problem with, the government and opposition working together and all that, and he's saying that might not augur very well with democracy. But also in his camp, we do have members from ODM like Aisha Jumwa joining his camp. So if that is a problem for him so much, that the government is working with the opposition, now there's no opposition in Kenya, but he's also the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya, but he's also working with some members from the opposition. So if he's going to choose a narrative, he has to learn to commit to it.
He can, but how can he commit to it when he has already run away? He's a double dealer. He's a liar, certified liar, certified liar. If you have done auditing, when they say your books are certified, they can have even lies. It tells you that go and clean them. So Ruto needs a very thorough cleaning. I don't know why this is not being done by the people. I believe there is something which is more than meets the eye. And for me, as Dr. Matsanga, I have never had any good words to put across wherever Ruto is involved. He will be addressing the Chatham House tomorrow from 1 o'clock to 2 p.m. and then thereafter leave for Israel in the morning of Saturday or on Tuesday morning. And we shall be in London also on 10th and 11th to debunk and tell the truth about what we want to do. Well, our meeting will be shoot outside Chatham House, away from Chatham House. We shall be in a hotel where people have already filled. I've got almost 400 people applications on my email, and they all want to come in first serve, first come, first serve. So we shall listen to the handshake story. And I'm very interesting. The handshake story is moving very seriously around Africa. And I'm one of the few people who is willing very quickly to register it in the United Kingdom so that it becomes a theory like that of Karl Marx. You know, I want to put Odinga and Raila Amolo Odinga and Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta in one books of history and books of political science as men who actually brought the handshake the first handshake done in Africa, which is spreading like a fire. Apparently, most people in Africa at the moment, Miriam, most politicians, and I repeat, most politicians in Africa, guess they are not accepting opposition. Most Africans are beginning to say, first, what is it? If we are going to do elections and we fight, we kill each other, it's better to do no elections at all. Or we do elections, but let's do it and knowing very well that the man who has won is ours. Let's be together, shake hands. Tanzania, Miriam, you can't believe it. All the people who said so many bad words about Tanzania, Miriam, where are they now today? You saw all of them coming back yesterday, kneeling before Madame Samia Suluhu. So this is something which we must actually not allow Ruto to destroy in Europe and say there is a wrong election. Elections, the truth is this. This is what I will be one of those participants online tomorrow, watching Ruto's involvement, and I will be asking questions. I have been given a chance to ask one question from wherever I am because I'm a member of Chatham House. I want to ask, when did he know that these elections were going to be rigged? Just that, if he can explain. If he knew, is he in government? Did he go as a government official, a private citizen, a tourist, or a preacher, or a follower of Jesus Christ? Because the journey looks like it's more of a church. And now you can prove from what I told you, Miriam, that they were given a restrictive visa not to live in Washington and Maryland. You know, that's the area they were operating. You can see all these people, even the governor of Nebraska, all of them came. They had to come to one place, but they didn't go to their houses or to their offices. That is a proof, and I proved right. I'm vindicated. God bless me.
Mm-hmm. And Doc, there's something you brought up, and perhaps I'd like Daniel to respond to that before we move on to... if you
can give me time, yes. Ask me any question because I'm about to leave, Miriam.
No, I just want to just anchor on what you just said, because the issue of the credibility and the election integrity here is at question, and that is something that he brought up time and time again. So this is something I hope that the IEBC is keenly watching, because they need to have a conversation with the Deputy President, because the issues that the Deputy President raised in regards to the integrity of the preparation of this election and the upcoming election, I think is something that we cannot just sweep under the rug. So do you think that the IEBC should, have a talk with the DP, and perhaps he could share what he knows about what might go wrong in this election, or what is going wrong for the interest, for public interest? I think it will be important.
Yes, they should actually. Normally, I expected IEBC to write a letter to the Deputy President to summon him, like they summoned the Chege. Sabina Chege was summoned. She even got a shock. She almost died. The way they summoned her and threatened her that they will ban her from elections. She almost died. So Ruto should also, immediately he arrives, should be summoned to the IEBC, because he's no longer the Deputy President alone. He is also a presidential candidate who is making errors. He's making errors in a race that we are also going to witness. He's making his collections. He got money, about $30,000 of a dinner in Washington. He collected that money. He came. His treasurer, his secretary general were there. I saw them in the delegation of UDA. So that money, they have violated so many things as far as the elections are concerned. Mm-hmm. So for me, it should be summoned.
Very well. Wesonga, your thoughts on the same?
Yes, I support Dr. Matsanga on that, absolutely, 100%, that the Deputy President should be summoned, and actually being that he number 2 in the country, who also is the subordinate of the president, in such matters, actually the intensity of his statements are even more than what Sabina Chege was saying. So I believe even IEBC should abandon whatever Sabina Chege said and give emphasis on whatever the deputy president is saying, because whatever Sabina Chege was talking about is actually a thing of the past. And as much as we know, the president is legally into office. The IEBC declared him as the president, and he was sworn in by the Chief Justice of this country, and therefore he is holding office legally in regards to that particular matter. But whatever the deputy president is talking about is something that is about to come. He's talking about an election which has not yet been conducted. So that actually raises great integrity questions about IEBC. It actually pokes holes into the credibility of the IEBC, and therefore IEBC should not focus on the things which were said which belong to the past, but they should focus more energy on whoever is talking about the forthcoming election. They should grill him and know what are the plans, who are these who are planning to steal the election, and how are they planning to steal the election when IEBC is there. And William Ruto sometimes makes me wonder whether is he truly insane, or maybe his uncontrolled ambition has led him to insane capacities, in that he does not even sometimes watch whatever he talks about. Because Miriam, if he's saying that the presidency, or maybe the state, and the Azimio la Umoja coalition is planning to rig election, then we have to ask him, has the rigging of elections that maybe just started this August? Is it just going to be starting this August, or has it been there? Because I believe if 2013 presidential elections were credible, if 2017 presidential elections were credible, then William Ruto must accept that even the 2022 August elections are going to be credible. And Miriam, just for a matter of fact, he is the deputy president of this country, and he should be watchful of whatever he says, because I believe he is preparing his supporters not to accept the outcome of the August polls, which is very, very dangerous, Miriam. I submit.
Very well. Thank you so much. And of course, the Standard has summoned the positions of both President Uhuru Kenyatta and Ruto's. And maybe just to go through it very quickly. Now, Ruto's contention, number one, is about succession. He understood that Raila was to retire, but had his doubts. And on the constitution, the BBI constitutional changes was not discussed with him. And on governance, partnership with opposition altered priorities. And he's been saying that about the Big Four agenda. And we know President Uhuru Kenyatta especially does not like that. And Parliament, a purge on his allies, a stab in the back, because we've seen all his allies being removed from these House committees and Parliament leadership committees, and so positions. And Ruto did not like that. And Uhuru's position is that work priorities, the DP, Ruto's reluctance to work instead of preferring to politics. So he's been reluctant to actually do the job that he's supposed to be doing as the deputy president. That is according to President Uhuru's position. And when it comes to Parliament, Tangatanga's mutiny, we saw that in the House. And on governance, President Uhuru Kenyatta has insisted that Ruto lies about non-performance, in regards to the DP saying that the handshake derailed the Big Four agenda and President Uhuru Kenyatta's legacy. So perhaps that brings us to the main topic that we were looking at in regards to Kenya. President Uhuru Kenyatta's legacy, is it on track? Doc. Esonga.
Yes, Miriam, just come up again.
President Kenyatta's legacy, because we've seen there the contention that the Standard has outlined some of the contentious issues between how Ruto is looking at some of these matters and how President Uhuru Kenyatta is looking at these matters. And the main thing, that Ruto has been raising is that the handshake interfered with the Jubilee government agenda, the Big Four agenda, but we also know that the president has maintained that Ruto has absconded duties and Ruto is lying about non-performance, about the government not doing much on its second term. So from where you're sitting, how would you judge President Uhuru Kenyatta's legacy so far? Is it on track?
Miriam, when you walk around Nairobi or maybe even across the country, you will notice that there is a lot which has been achieved, especially in terms of infrastructure, and actually also reviving some of the government industries like Rivertex. And you see whatever he has been doing, even in expanding the ports, airports, and also just making sure that Nairobi city actually is rejuvenated in terms of its development and all that. So to me, I would say that it's only the strangers in Jerusalem who will claim that maybe the president has not done much in terms of the legacy. But truth be told, Miriam, President Uhuru Kenyatta has achieved more in his second term, more than he achieved in his first term. And the reasons for that is what the president has always reiterated himself, that it's because in the first time, his government had been hijacked by people who are actually hell-bent on avarice, corruption, and looting of public coffers. Remember, the Jubilee government in 2013 was formed on a 50-50 basis between TNA and URP, and William Ruto ran away with half of the government. So in as much as the president's side was trying to do work on development and actually upgrade the social status of the people of Kenya, the other side of the deputy president was actually looting money, carrying them in sacks, and running around the country, contributing them into harambes. Dr. Matsanga was able to highlight that some few weeks ago, and that was actually the basis of the fallout between the president and his deputy, because one was committed towards development, and the other was actually working towards maybe stealing and absconding of duty and all those things that actually derailed the agenda of the government of the day. And therefore, Miriam, they could not work together, because even in the Bible, they say two cannot work together until they agree to. So that was actually what brought about the acrimony between the president and the deputy. And therefore, to say that maybe the handshake derailed the government agenda, I think it's a bit far-fetched and quite hypocritical, because the handshake actually came out as a rescuer of the legacy of the president. And the president himself actually said that in Sagana 3, that his house was on fire, and the fire was being actually fueled by insiders in government. That is to mean the deputy president and his allies. And he had to run to the opposition leaders to assist him come and put out this fire. And therefore, that is why he went and reached out for Right Honorable Raila Odinga and his troops to come and assist him to pass even the essential bills in Parliament, which will assist cement his legacy project. So, Miriam, you know, Kenyans are not fools. And we know whatever has been happening, we can always see with our own eyes. We know who has been stealing public monies and contributing in harambes. Because you wouldn't tell me that William Ruto has the financial muscle or the capability to be able to contribute 50 million in one weekend, whereas his monthly salary is actually 2 million. So where does he get all these millions? Where did he get all these millions that he was contributing during his first term, quite in plenty, and his second term? You know, these are monies which were stolen in the first time before the president was able to purge some of the people who are aiding him to steal from the government. So to me, Miriam, I believe the president has achieved his legacy, and I know all this has been made possible simply because in his second term, he actually was clever enough to disassociate and cut off all the taps that were being exploited by the allies of the deputy president to steal in broad daylight monies which were meant for development of the people of the Republic of Kenya. In Sagana 3, the president is on record saying that he gave his deputy 3 billion to take back to his backyard, Miriam, to do development, but he ran away with it and contributed in churches. And at some point, he could even mention that it is the president who has sent him with the money, whereas he knew it was a lie, and he was actually engaging in corruption activities. So, Miriam, I believe the president has done his best, and you can see from whatever project that we are having. Yeah, just here in Nairobi, look at the Nairobi Expressway. Look at the Nairobi CBD through NMS. Look at the hospitals being built around the city. Look at the dams which have been constructed. But The deputy president will not tell you about that these are the projects which has been rolled out during the second term. In the first time, the only major project was the SGR, where William Ruto, again, through his buddies, took a very big cut out of it, actually raising the costs of the SGR construction. So there isn't something like the handshake actually derailed the Big Four agenda. If anything is to go by, then the handshake was actually a great aid to the big achievement of the Big Four agenda, because it brought in the conducive environment for these projects to be carried out. It actually aided in terms of legislation in parliament to enable the president actually smoothly bring some of his development, maybe legacy projects into fruition, whereas William Ruto and his allies were trying to poke holes and be able to derail and sabotage the projects. So Miriam, I think the president has done quite well in terms of legacy, and that is in his second term, he has achieved more than he achieved in the first time because of the runway corruption that was actually had bedeviled his term. And I believe the talk about maybe the handshake derailing the legacy and the agenda of the Jubilee government is far-fetched and quite untrue, having to come from the deputy president, Miriam. I submit.
Thank you so much. I don't know if it's a wonder that right now, the DP has been taking on President Kenyatta on a one-on-one. We know previously he's been avoiding that direct confrontation with his boss. Instead, he's been laying all the blame at the doorstep of opposition leader Raila Odinga. And you would wonder, I mean, President Kenyatta had a working relationship and understanding and coalition with the deputy. So if something went wrong in that coalition, he should be taking on the president. But, he's been using, he's been blaming the opposition Raila Odinga for a long time. But right now, he seems to have assumed this new, position, and he has no problem taking on President Kenyatta. I wonder why. And now that he's coming out and talking about these things and his knowledge of even this previous meetings before the actual handshake happened, I don't know if that will work for him as when he comes back home to continue with his campaigns, because these are things he said I did not know. I was not consulted. I was not privy to the information. I was not part of the consultation, and that has been his stand since 2018 when this handshake happens. I don't know when he comes back to the campaign trail what he'll be saying, and if at all he'll be speaking different things as far as this handshake is concerned, but we'll leave that there for right now. Doc, we're getting into our second part of the conversation, and that is on Africa, and is George Soros funding rebellion in Africa like he did in Ukraine. So maybe you would want to start us off in that conversation, and then we will continue from there. Doc, if you can hear me, good afternoon. All right, so Daniel, we seem to be having a problem, with the connection between, Doc and where he is. We have a bit of a problem there. But for those who don't know, there was a war. The war that we're seeing right now, the conflict between Russia and Ukraine did not start today. A matter of fact, it is something that has been simmering, but it was brought to the fore, I think, in 2014. And just a bit of a history background as we wait for Doc to join us and continue with this conversation. Ukraine is not such a big country. It's the size of, Texas, state there in the United States. And this has been a place of conflict between Russia and Europe and the US. It was part of the Soviet Union until 1991. And since then has been a less than perfect democracy with a very weak economy and foreign policy and wavers between pro-Russia and pro-European. The country is divided between the western side, which supports, EU and the Western countries' way of democracy and all that, and we do have the eastern side that is allied to Russia. This all began as an internal Ukrainian crisis in November 2013 when the then President Viktor Yanukovych at that time rejected a deal for a greater integration with the European Union. He is sparking mass protests. So much part of the western part of Ukraine wanted to join the EU, but the eastern part did not want. That is supported by Russia, and the western side is supported by Europe and NATO allies and the countries from the west. So that became a bone of contention, leading to mass protest. And at that time, that President Yanukovych attempted to put down violently the protest, being aided by Russia. And of course, Russia backed him. And since then, several big things have happened. Anti-government protest toppled that government, and so he was forced to run away. President Yanukovych was, ran away out of the country, and Russia are trying to salvage its lost influence in Ukraine, invaded and annexed Crimea. So I know we know this story about how Russia annexed Crimea, but that is where that came from. So he did annex the Crimea the next month after President Yanukovych left the country. And in April the same year, pro-Russia separatist rebels began seizing territory in eastern Ukraine. The rebels shot down the Malaysian airlines. I don't know if you can remember that, the Flight 17 on July 17th. Killing 298 people, and that was probably looked at as an accident. And fighting between the rebels and the Ukrainian military intensified. The rebels started losing, and in August, the Russian army overtly invaded eastern Ukraine and to support the rebels. This all brought the relationship between Russia and the West to its lowest point since the Cold War. And we know that sanctions are pushing Russian economy to the brink of recession. And that time, and also what we are seeing today. So looking at just a bit of a background of the war we are now seeing in Ukraine, it did not just start overnight. This is something that has been simmering since actually 1991 when the Soviet Union was broken up and Ukraine became a republic. And so many other countries that were part of the USSR. And Russia, of course, has not been very happy because the president that was removed, Yanukovych, was an ally of him. They were working together with Russia. And the president we have right now, is more allied to the Western powers. So that is what Russia is not feeling at all. That is what President Putin is against, because they are fierce, because now the president wanted Ukraine to join NATO, the president wanted Ukraine to join the EU, and that will come with sudden interest now being represented in Ukraine if at all it joins this, unions. And so Russia has been opposed to it and has been against it. And so that is what actually revived this new wave of conflict that we've seen continue and intensifying there in the Ukraine. And so when you look at what is happening, Daniel, and where this war is today, and then you bring that back to the continent, and you see even how in the recent past, Russia has been trying to, just expand its tentacles across Africa. It's been coming slowly but surely, especially in countries that seems to be having some level of instability. We saw how it presented its own solutions to Mali, and I think it's coming to the country instigated the moving out of other forces from the European Union, being led by French. And we saw just after the invasion started in Ukraine, Russia offered to come and help, with the crisis in the Democratic Republic of Congo. I don't know how they're planning to do that. And Russia's presence has been registered in mercenaries in Libya and other countries that are conflict-ridden. And so you wonder what really is going on. But now looking at what is happening right now and that background that perhaps I've given there might help us understand the kind of proxy war that perhaps is being exported here in the continent. Would you say, looking at a country like Zimbabwe and maybe Sudan and others, that perhaps George Soros and these other external powers and influences are trying to infiltrate and perhaps instigate some of these protests and regime change, antics that we've been seeing playing out in these countries across Africa?
Thank you so much, Miriam. And of course, Dr. Matsanga had earlier on one of the shows talked about this particular conflict between Russia and Ukraine, and he gave actually the details of where the rain started beating the Ukrainians and the Russians in this particular kind of war. And what I will say is that all these problems that we are having globally, be it in Russia, be it in Eastern Europe, be it even sometimes in Hong Kong, in Taiwan, it's all because of one epicenter, and that is George Soros through the CIA and other American interest players. And you will see that even in this particular conflict, we have Belarus also siding with Russia, simply because in Belarus we also have a group of a few individuals who wanted to have a regime change of the current government, and they were being supported by George Soros. We have the same problem in Hungary, where we have a group of individuals who also want to overturn the government of the day. And all of these are being supported by George Soros. And if you want to know the intensity of the matter, you realize that George Soros has actually been banned even in his own home country. And that is because of interference. And it's because of this interference that maybe sometimes Russia feels as if maybe they're actually infringing in the way it should actually relate with its traditional maybe neighbors or maybe its former states. Because
go ahead. Oh, we apologize for that. We seem to have suffered a bit of a technical hitch there from Daniel, our correspondent and our in-house analyst. But nevertheless, I think
tries to bring together its former member states. I believe it should be regarded as an internal matter, which can be actually solved amicably between Russia and Ukraine itself. And remember, like I said before, these are people who are bound together by the same culture, same language, and at one point, they were one homogeneous country, big country called USSR. So to me, I believe there is no evil in Russia actually maybe wanting to take back Ukraine. The only thing that we should discourage is the idea of starting a war, because a war would actually destroy both sides and will actually have its own bigger costs on the people and innocent civilians who are not interested maybe in the matters that are happening currently between Ukraine and Russia. So that tells you that the tentacles of the Open Society Foundation, the CIA, and other American oligarchs who would want to see that we have instability across the globe just to maybe advance the American interests, actually spread far and wide. And that's why even today in Zimbabwe, you still see people donning in yellow clothes, T-shirts, saying that they are the opposition, whereas we know where they're coming from, whereas we know who is giving them money. Where does these opposition leaders get billions of shillings to be able to pump into elections year in, year out, whereas they don't have any industries where they can be able to get money, or maybe they do not come from rich families which made money in post-independence Africa. So this money comes from America, you know, through NGOs like the Open Society Foundation. Look at whatever is happening in Uganda, and you'll know the kind of interference that happens through the Open Society Foundation, George Soros, and the CIA. Look at whatever was happening in Ethiopia. Look at whatever has been happening even in the Middle East, you know. These all has been interference by the US and NGOs like George Soros Open Society Foundation. And for them, whenever they interfere with a certain democracy, or maybe they even take their military to a certain country, they will want to call it intervention or maybe liberation, you know, the way they did with Afghanistan, the way they did with Iraq. But whenever Russia wants to get into Ukraine, now they term it as an invasion and maybe a war against the people of Ukraine. Why is it that the US does not even own up whenever it does atrocities and it creates a state of anarchy in other countries? Look at whatever they did in Somalia in 1991, 1992. The repercussions are being felt to date. Look at whatever mess they left in Afghanistan. Today, Afghanistan cannot even stand on its feet. Look at whatever damage they did in Iraq. today Iraq is not cannot even be able to catch up with its Middle Eastern other countries like Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and Qatar. But it would have been far, because considering that it also has oil deposits and it's strategically positioned. Look at what they have been doing even in countries like Congo. You know, it is CIA through Mobutu Sese Seko that killed Patrice Lumumba, the first Prime Minister of Congo. And since that time, Congo has never had a stable government. So, Miriam, I believe Americans should stop interfering with the affairs of the Russian Federation. They should stop interfering with other countries, even here in Africa. And they should not be always swift to actually maybe point fingers, whereas they have done the worst of atrocities to other countries over the decades. And we must take clear that, Miriam, it is George Soros through his Open Society Foundation that is causing trouble to many democracies in the world, trying to destabilize them through civil societies and opposition leaders. But the CIA chooses to keep a blind eye on him, simply because the interest of George Soros actually serves the interest of CIA. Because whenever he creates chaos, the CIA can always take advantage of that and be able to advance the American interest. So therefore, just like the conspicuous once said, that do not point at the snow on your neighbor's roof, whereas your door is filthy. That is the same principle that should apply to the US. They should stop casting aspersions. They should stop pointing fingers and putting blame to Russia, whereas they have been actively been involved in destabilizing democracies across the globe, either through infiltration through foundations such as George Soros Open Society Foundation, or even in countries like Iraq and Afghanistan, where they have actually sent their military there to be able to destabilize the regimes that were in power at that particular time. So, Miriam, I believe that what is good for the goose is good for the gander, and therefore let Russia and Ukraine solve their own internal issues. To me, as much as I'm concerned, Russia and Ukraine have a very long-standing relationship, and there's no way they can be unable to solve the current crisis as it be. And Dr. Masanga wrote a very, very interesting article today in the morning about the leadership of the Ukraine and how over time it has been infiltrated by outsiders. You know, people have led Ukraine, people who are not of the Ukrainian descent, people who are from various parts of the world, people who have been working hand in hand with the CIA, people who have been working hand in hand with the foreign NGOs to be able to destabilize Russia and the region in particular. So to me, I think, Miriam, this is a conflict that maybe would have been solved amicably were it not for George Soros' interference and shortchanging and undermining Russian interest in Ukraine. And also, was it not that the US and the Western partners were not doing it in good faith? Because it is not the first time they have actually sabotaged Russia. If there are people who actually celebrated and actually worked towards the fall of the Soviet Union, then why would Russia believe that they will have a good intention even as they deal with Ukraine? So to me, on this one, Miriam, I think only Russia and the people of Ukraine can be able to solve this particular stalemate and be able to come to an amicable, maybe lasting, peaceful solution. And I will support maybe the people who are working day and night to ensure that we have dialogue in the boardroom and people are able to put aside their arms and be able to talk in the boardroom. Otherwise, those who are trying to escalate and fuel the situation through sanctions are not doing any good to either side, Miriam. I submit.
All right. So I know in the conflict that was there in 2014, when Putin decided to invade Ukraine, this is the first time he's invading Ukraine, he said that, the protest, between the eastern part and the western part, as I said there earlier, were an American conspiracy to isolate Russia, and that the new Ukrainian government, now the president that we have right now, after the previous government that was friendly to Putin was removed through those protests, he said the current Ukrainian government is run by secret Nazis bent on expansion. I think that is the same rhetoric that he's using to take on Ukraine, to invade Ukraine on right now. And at that time, he was saying, the Western powers and the powers that we wanted to isolate Russia. But now, what we are seeing happening right now, would you not say that Russia has isolated itself, what is playing out as it is playing out right now?
Thank you, Miriam. I wouldn't say that Russia has isolated itself, and I believe Russia is one of the most honest nations that we have across the globe, because despite facing even isolation by the West for quite too long without any apparent better reason, you realize that Russia has tried as much as possible to be self-sustainable. It has forged working relationships with various countries across the globe, including some in Africa. And whatever thing that Russia has done in these countries is out of genuinity. Russia has never gone to a certain country with an interest of maybe interfering with its system of governance, or maybe illegally, and maybe with a lot of capitalist mentality of stealing its resources. But what do we know of the West and the Americans? They will only come to you whenever they see something good in your land, so that they are able to make a kill out of it. That is where now they'll seem to be concerned about the state of leadership in your country, about who becomes who in that particular country, and etc. Miriam, why wouldn't they maybe? Why do you think maybe Americans were much focused about maybe deciding who becomes a leader of the majority Middle Eastern countries? It is because of oil and other natural resources that are in those particular countries. Why would America maybe even go for an island down in the Indian Ocean, like we've seen in Southeast Asian countries? It is because of the strategic position and there, so that they are able to position and station their military bases in there. So to me, I believe, Miriam, Russia has been isolated by the West and America simply because they feel threatened of this particular country, because before the collapse of the Soviet Union, actually the USSR was as big an economy and political power as the US, and even maybe much better than the US. And therefore, there has been always this kind of discontent and contempt coming from the West against Russia. There's some kind of fear and some kind of feeling that maybe perhaps if Russia is left to grow maybe beyond its current status, then it will pose a threat to the Western interests. The same thing is happening with China, Miriam. The way the West is treating China is the same way they're treating the Russian leadership, And this is simply because they feel threatened. They wouldn't want someone or maybe another country or another continent to do better than them. That is why they'll tell you China is doing this and that. That is why you'll see the US, without any tangible reason, actually putting sanctions on Beijing and actually frustrating their business in America. That is why you'll see, even when Russia has not been aggressive in terms of starting wars and attacking any other particular country, you will see America still feeling as if maybe they should actually continue maybe their sanctions and put pressure on Russia without any apparent reason, Miriam. So to me, I think this decision to put sanctions on Russia because it has maybe invaded Ukraine, this is something that Americans always hope that will happen sooner than later. And therefore, maybe putting these sanctions just simply because Russia has invaded Ukraine is just a more convenient excuse of a thought, or maybe of a plan which has been in the offing for quite far too long. So I believe, Miriam, this is something which was bound to happen. It was only a matter of time. And it is not simply because Russia has invaded Ukraine. You know, as we speak today, the US still has some of their soldiers on foreign lands across the world, you know, which I believe it's illegal, and the Americans should be told as it is. Why do we have an US jail in Cuba? Why do we still have some of the soldiers of the US soldiers in parts of Middle East, and no one actually talks about it? Has the US military ever been brought to book, or maybe taken to the ICC of the atrocities they committed during the occupation of Vietnam, during the occupation of Iraq and Afghanistan? Nothing has ever been done. Why Russia? I believe, Miriam, if similar thing would have happened with Russia, then today we will be talking about Russia actually being crippled by sanctions coming from the US and the rest of the West. Why is Zimbabwe still grappling with sanctions, despite the fact that Mugabe is long gone? Because I believe the acrimony that was there between Zimbabwe and the West was as a result of the leadership policies that was brought about in Zimbabwe under the leadership of the late President Robert Mugabe. Why are Zimbabweans still taking the brunt of these sanctions, whereas Mugabe is long gone? So to me, I believe, Miriam, it is never about maybe integrity. It is never about maybe even the interests of the people in those particular countries, but it's always about the interests of the West. So even as they go ahead to enforce the sanctions and put more sanctions on Russia, I believe Russia hasn't isolated itself, but over time, Russia has been receiving threats of getting isolated, and in some way, even Russia has been isolated diplomatically, because these are the same individuals who have been driving a negative perspective about Russia in the diplomatic corridors and making Russia seem like an axis of evil across other continents, whereas they have been the perpetrators of the same crimes that they accuse the Kremlin of doing, Miriam. I submit.
All right. But when you look at what Russia, as we conclude, what Russia is doing right now in Ukraine, it was not provoked at all. All right. So how do you justify what is happening in Ukraine right now? Is there justification for that?
Miriam, the reason why Russia is trying to recapture that part of Ukraine is the same reason why today China feels that Taiwan should be part of the mainland China, as well as Hong Kong. You know, the break of maybe Ukraine from the USSR is something that maybe perhaps the mainland Russia believes was instigated by Western interference, and therefore when it seeks to reclaim part of or maybe the other states which actually form the United Soviet Socialist Republic, it's actually up to them, Miriam. Just the same way you will say that it's actually unfair that the US is against the amalgamation of maybe Hong Kong and Taiwan to the mainland China, whereas these countries used to be the same and one thing. So I really don't believe how a stranger could come to your house, cause divisions between your family members, but whereas you're trying to bring the family together and live like in harmony and progressively like in the olden days, the same stranger actually comes and threatens you with a legal battle or maybe something that will cripple your financial status as a family. So to me, I believe this is an internal matter, and if they can be able to sit down and be able to solve it, maybe they will come to an agreement. If it is not viable, then they'll be able to talk. And I'll really like to maybe amplify whatever I've been having, my perspective about this particular conflict. And Miriam, you will be very, very much maybe misguided if you think it is all about Russia and Ukraine. The assault that Russia carried out on Ukraine was targeting the Western powers and America. It was actually to show the Americans and the West that they actually have no say in whatever happens between Russia and Ukraine. Simply because for a long time, the Americans and the West have always worked to dictate whatever comes out of maybe Russia and its former member states. You know, trying to dictate and maybe helping to maintain the status quo. So when Russia invaded Ukraine, it was not the Ukraine that was the target, but the bigger target is the US. And that is why you see the US and Russia are more involved in this than any other particular countries. So Miriam, I think perhaps the only way to maybe bring peace to that particular region is by restraining the US from interfering with the affairs of other countries. Because if the US will not interfere with how maybe Russia is relating with Ukraine, or maybe George Soros are going to interfere with businesses in Russia and Ukraine and Belarus, this will not have happened. These are people who are tied together through their ancestral roots. These are people who speak the same language. These are people who live even in the same geographical area, and therefore nothing will have taken them maybe apart unless for this unwelcome stranger in the name of the US and George Soros, who started building a wedge of confusion and separation between these particular countries, and to an extent where the matter escalated out of hand, and now we are having this kind of invasion. So Miriam, I believe when you look at the bigger picture, actually they're trying to send a bigger message to the US and its allies and friends like George Soros, who work with CIA to sabotage leadership in Europe and other parts of the world. So to me, I believe, Miriam, that is the scenario of whatever conflict that we are having right now. And therefore, the invasion was actually to prove a point. Just the same way China behaves with Taiwan and Hong Kong. And it feels that at some point in time, the West actually took away whatever part was critical to it, and they would actually work hard to actually bring it together and integrate and build one homogeneous society. I submit, Miriam.
All right, and Hong Kong is part of China anyways, but I know China has been eyeing Taiwan, so maybe it's just looking out how Russia is going on with this, and maybe that would give it the audacity it's been looking for to go into Taiwan. Doc, we're waiting for you. So go ahead.
I've come back. Thank you very much. I know there are a few minutes left, but it is very good. I had to go to an important telephone call, Miriam, which is very good for you and the rest of us. First, the question of the war now in Ukraine and Russia. It is very clear that there is something which is missing. I shocked Wesonga this morning when I analyzed what is the government of Ukraine. I don't know whether Wesonga you have read it. You have read what I wrote? Everybody there is a comedian, Miriam. Ukrainian government, everybody, Miriam, is a comedian. Either director of comedy, director of photography. You know, the guy, when he took over power, the president himself was a comedian. So what he did, he created ministries of comedians. Comedian director. So in such a situation, policy becomes a joking matter. Look at the statements that he is issuing right now. That you don't go away, stay on the streets and fight. How are you going to fight with a man who has got a nuclear weapon? He's coming to kill you. That's one point. If you look at what the Russians, let's look at it. I wanted to bring it so that you look at what is it going to happen. Russia, as we speak now, has cut off the gas. Today, a few minutes ago, the gas pipeline from Russia to the west is cut off. It has been shut. It is a matter of time, Miriam, that you are going to see so many things change faces. It is gone. The thing is gone. MasterCard, Visa card, whatever it is which is Western is not happening. And the breaking news, China has now sent in its MasterCard. China, Unipay card, which works like the Visa. It can also be used anywhere. If you have Unipay, you can draw money from any of these English or American, ATMs. So there is something which is taking place that is not very good for the world economy. Very soon the economy might come to a standstill. Very soon the people in London, the prices of gas, of hot gas, oil and everything is shooting up in Europe. The travel will be very difficult. So if we thought that we are heaping sanctions on Russia, America has got enough hot gas, the gas, to keep itself for years. Europe doesn't have that much. It does not have storage for more than 6 months without pumping. So we are heading to a very terrible situation as we are now. And I think it is time for us to readjust. It is time for us to make sure that things don't work the way they are, but things change in the format where the world comes to a table, to a negotiating table. African countries that have just jumped on to accept the foreign policy of saying condemnation of Ukraine, of Russia, without analyzing the situation on the ground, we might very soon change our minds. Do you know how much trade we are going to lose in India? Kenya is losing trade. Kenya was exporting flowers, huge amounts of flowers to Russia every day. They were, to be very honest, the sanctions have already started biting. So the Kenyan farmer, the Kenyan trader, the Kenyan economy will be affected if you are going to lose $1 billion of trade out of Russia. Why should you lose that money? And other people coming to fill the gaps. Flowers will come from some other countries. Flowers will now come from Zimbabwe. You know, we compete with Zimbabwe in the growing of flowers, Miriam. So we have to be very careful where we go. You can see Uganda has been doing a dilly-dally, and go. It stands, you know, Museveni stands on the periphery. When I say aye. You know, the Somalis say aye. You say, what is happening inside there? And he's playing a very good tactical foreign policy. But when you come in the middle and say, yes, we have lost already, Kenya is going to lose a lot of trade with as a result of the direct, support. We are not saying we don't cry for the human rights that have been abused. We do. We are not happy at all. We are not. We are not happy at all. So, in a short, George Soros, the Ukrainian revolution, the Russian military has so far destroyed half of George Soros' wealth. All the banks are gone down. You can see that the rocket launchers, rockets are targeting on the certain buildings in Kiev. Miriam, did you know that? They are targeting. Why are they not hitting the parliament of Kiev, for example? They have not hit the parliament, but they are going for banks, which were George Soros banks, which he created after stealing their 969 billion and then went and backed them in Ukraine and put a revolution in Ukraine and spread. That revolution spread everywhere. In Hungary, where he's born, he can't go there. He's like me and Uganda. So we are together with Mr. George Soros, but on different paths. I don't know what Miriam can comment on that, but that is the life I am inside. Yes, Miriam. I was saying, Miriam, have you heard what I'm saying? I'm saying whether you can comment on, I am like a George Soros. George Soros cannot go to Hungary, but he has invested in Ukraine, which is next to Hungary. So the Russians went for those things that are mostly his. And very soon they are going to come on table. And they will discuss the peace process. Back to you, Miriam.
Very well, thank you. And even as we look at this war as it continues to intensify, would you say that perhaps it has exposed the underbelly of what the rest of us knew as a very strong army? Maybe it is still strong, the Russian army, because when you look at some images and some of the reports on the ground, you know, in 2014 when it invaded Ukraine, it was very easier for them. But this time round, the kind of resistance that the Russian army has been getting from Ukraine, would you say that perhaps it has exposed some weakness in this army that has been considered to be mighty and very strong, and that perhaps may not be the case at all?
No, Miriam, to the contrary, no. I mean, we are creating a very bad... I didn't expect this to come from you.
No, in 2014, when you look at how they invaded Ukraine, it was easier for them to get in there. But right now, the kind of resistance they've been getting, all right. So maybe the planes are being brought down. The things, the military, artillery are being brought down by the Ukrainians, and of course other forces that are being helped by the Western part. Has this perhaps exposed, some weakness in this mighty army that we thought it is?
Do you know why? The NATO is hiding under those people.
Yeah. I'm very fully aware.
That's it. Yeah, NATO is hiding there. NATO cannot say we are fully involved. Because if NATO says so, then do you know whom you have drawn in the war now? You have drawn in China. You have drawn in all countries that don't like to hear NATO. They will come. And another thing that we are doing, a mistake that the world is making. Russian army is cruel. It's very cruel. I'm telling you, the way you are saying they are bringing down their planes, one of the days they are going to bring down several things that you cannot. You remember how they shot a plane there? They shot it.
The Ukrainians shot it.
Yeah,
in 2014, they did shoot the plane from, what do you call it, that killed several people, I think over 200 people. But that was, they shot it by mistake when they were invading, Ukraine at that time, I remember.
Let me tell you, Russia is not a country we should tackle. Russia is a country we should talk to now. Yes, the short term, the underbelly is exposed. But the cruelty of the Russian army is going to be seen. It is going to be seen soon. If we continue with that upward strategy of saying, the NATO is giving these men the latest anti-missiles, which are capturing.
And when you see especially citizens from these NATO countries volunteering, from what I've been seeing, I think even there's some other...
There are Kenyans on social media who are registering to go, and there is a visa free to go if you have been a soldier. If I had the energy now, I would have actually gone to make dollars there. Yeah, because I know how to do the needful. They won't teach you much. And I don't know whether I would come back, Miriam, because things are... This is a war we should have stopped a long time ago. That's the truth.
All right. And that brings us to the end of the show, if at all, unless you have something else you want to add on to.
No, I just want to say, I want people to read my post of what is the Ukrainian government. What is it? Was it a government or a drama club? It could be a comedy club. The song, I don't know, you have not made any comment, you have read.
Yes, Doc, I was able to see your article today in the morning about the composition of the Ukrainian government. And actually, before you came on board, when you are away on a call, I told Miriam about how Ukrainians have been always led with people who do not even meet the standards of being leaders in those offices. Because some of them, like you mentioned, have been informers of the CIA. Some of them have been total strangers to the leadership of the Ukrainian government. And therefore, that is why you see, unlike any other state that was part of the Russian Federation, Ukraine has proven to be a bit hard-headed, and perhaps it has been the only country which has dared its motherland to a battle, and we can see the repercussions that it has brought upon itself. And maybe just to add on it, I agree with you that NATO is actually hiding behind Ukraine and is actually giving them more lethal weapons. Today, when I read some of the articles from the Russian intelligence, they're actually talking about Ukraine coming up with a very, very lethal nuclear bomb, of which they know the Ukrainian government does not even have the capacity to come up with. So the question is, who is actually helping Ukraine to come up with this particular nuclear bomb, or rather, who is actually giving it to Ukraine so that it can be able to use it against Russia? So it's whatever is happening is just a tip of the iceberg. But the truth is there are people who are actually working behind the screens to be able to sabotage Russia and be able to fight Russia, hiding behind the face of Ukraine, Dr. Matsanga. I agree with you.
Thank you very much. Miriam, thank you very much, all of you. We have done our best, and God willing, tuonane kesho. Our new Good Morning Africa, where we shall strictly Wesonga prepare your notes, especially on sports. We shall call you in now. We shall be in 3 categories, and you'll be the sports representative of ours. I and Miriam, we are not very good at sports. So Miriam will go through as it is. Thank you very much. We shall be meeting tomorrow again at 10 o'clock with our new Good Morning Africa, centralizing on 4 pillars: Kenyan news review, newspaper review, Kenya politics, Africa and the world, sports and the weather. Miriam will do the weather, or I will do the weather. Whoever is available. It's available everywhere. We want to keep people informed. So our points will be cut. Tomorrow, don't miss that show. A new one coming tomorrow, back to where the roots of Miriam are and I. We started with Good Morning Africa. So we have done an experiment and we've seen, let's go back to Good Morning Africa. That's what we shall do. Thank you very much, Miriam. Have a nice Saturday. No? A nice Sunday. Back to you.
All right. Thank you so much for watching. Let's see you here back tomorrow at 9 a.m. East African time. Bye-bye for now.